So
Oh, I like Brady too. I don't
yeah,
tell
I
people
ain't no
I like
secret
him.
about me. So
Knowledge is Power Podcast Live is a platform to share important information by educating the Southeast Texas African Americans community with valuable information on health, education, financial, politics, business, and whatever you can call it. We'll do it. Hey guys, thank you. Thank you everyone. And joining us tonight is my co-host Francis Hawkins.
Good evening, guys.
My roundtable cast crew is here. Terry Roy and Trisha Primo. Hey guys.
Hi, guys.
All right. We've got a guest tonight. Is it anything we need to talk about before we go into our guests?
I don't think so. I know that we have Soul Purpose coming up here in this area.
Yes, that's
soon.
on. Yeah, I know about that. And also, I've got the Charlton Pollitt historical story going to be playing, and I want all of those. We're going to talk about that later on the show. So let's go into this part. Knowledge is Power Podcast Live is now on Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Apple, iTunes, and Google Play, and quite a few more. And also, you can see our show and hear our show on our new website is www.knowledgeispowerpodcast.live. And we've got our Facebook page back up again. We lost all our materials, so we started all over. And we still have the Facebook. We have a new page now on Facebook. It's Knowledge is Power Podcast, Black Culture page. Guys need to check it out. Got a lot of Black history. Just kind of revised what we were doing earlier. And tonight, our guest is Kristen Manuel, candidate for Texas House Representative District 2. Kristen's going to be joining us right after this break. Welcome to Knowledge is Power Podcast Live with your host, Tony Redford, and my co-hosts, LaDonna Sherwood and Francis Hawkins.
Knowledge is Power Podcast Live starts now.
Kristen Manuel Hayes, candidate for Texas State House of Representative District 22. Hello, Chris.
Hello, how's it going?
I'm great, guys. Chris is well, I've been knowing Chris' family for a very long time, and I am so proud of you, and I'm glad to have you, and I'm glad that you are taking that big, huge step in pursuing District 22 as our rep. So, Chris, I've got my guests here again, Trisha Primo and Terry Roy and Francis Larkin. We're just here kind of together. We just want you to know that we want to be fair. We want everyone to know that we want you to feel comfortable, and we want to support whoever comes out of this primary. You know, we want to make sure that we introduce you to our community, and that the community knows who you are. So, Francis, you can take the lead, sweetie.
Absolutely. Christian, we're so happy to have you on the show tonight. I don't know if I've actually had the pleasure of meeting you. I think maybe at a Women's Democratic Party over at Cotton Creek. I'm thinking maybe once or twice. I know that you
back real quiet, making either I have paper normally in my hand or I'm trying to like text my boss like, hey, did you do this? Don't forget to say this.
Absolutely. Well, you definitely represent one of my favorite men in Southeast Texas, and that is Joe Straus. So we are happy and honored to have you in our show tonight. So we want to just know a little bit about your background just to kick things off.
Sure. Well, I was born here in the Jefferson County area. I was born at Mid Jefferson Hospital. Went to school in Port Arthur. My father is a former Coast Guard member. He was in the Coast Guard for 33 years. So when I was a little bit younger, we were kind of different places, Milwaukee, California. But I've been back in Texas and in the Southeast Texas area since I was 17. So that's about 19, 20 years of my life that I've been back here consecutively. Worked for Rep Desotel. When I was 18 years old, I graduated from Memorial High School, was going to Houston Tillotson for a little bit, and the rep gave me an opportunity, and I kind of just stayed, and he just liked the way I worked, and he just kept promoting me. So I've been in Texas politics, I can say, my entire adult life, and it's been a blessing. It's been such a blessing, honestly, it has been.
So what called you to politics? How were you drawn to that?
Well, really, it was my family. My grandmother is from Port Arthur. Her name is Miss Hardy Savoy. She has the MLK support group, Southeast Texas in Port Arthur. And her MLK brunch that she has in celebration is actually
Okay.
the same age that I am.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I've just always been around congressional members and Senate members and dignitaries my whole life. So politics and service. I have a mother who's a teacher, an aunt who's a teacher, was a principal, cousins. Service, public service particularly, has always been a part of just my normal, average, everyday life. And so I always
Right.
kind of thought, well, everybody gives back to their country because your country
Right.
educates you and vaccinates you and takes care of you and all those kinds of things. So it was just very natural to me.
So it's like a rite of passage.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So can you tell us a little bit about what the Texas representative does and what districts or what areas this District 22 covers?
So District 22 covers Beaumont, Port Arthur, Rose, Port Neches within Jefferson County. And depending on how many people you have, the population is about 190 some thousand people. The Texas House has the luxury of not having to absolutely meet the 194,000 threshold. We have about a minus of as long as you're under 5%.
Mm-hmm.
So within Jefferson County, we have 2 state representatives based on how the population is. And because Jefferson County has a large minority population, we also have a minority protected district, which is what District 22 is. It's a minority protected district that is predominantly Black and Latino or Hispanic Americans. But of course, we have all other minorities within it. But it's because of the Voting Acts right, the Voting Acts right law. That is why we have a district that is minority protected. And a state representative, honestly, is a part-time legislator. They're only obligated to be there for 140 days every other odd year. And the only bill that they're actually obligated, a lot of people don't know this, the only thing a state representative actually has to do is pass a budget. Everything else is just a gold mine. It's like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do this. The only thing that you have to do is that. And you're only required to be there for 140 days. And then, unless there's a special session, you're back at home with your constituents, making sure you're meeting with them, making sure constituent services are the forefront. And then from there, it's gearing up for the next legislative session and making sure that you're just as visible as you possibly can be.
Okay. Well, that you are definitely visible.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I haven't been out in 2 years and I've seen you. So,
Well, thank you very much.
hey, Terry.
Yeah.
You
Hey,
got
Kristen,
any?
how are you? How are you
I'm
this evening?
calling myself.
I'm doing well. I know you worked under Joe for a long time.
Yes,
What are
sir.
some of the things that you learned from Joe, and what are some of the things that you would like to do different than what he did?
So one of the things that I've learned from him, which to me is really important, is bipartisanship. Long story short, I remember I was 18 years old and there was a member who she voted for a bill I didn't like. And I said, I can't believe she would do that. That's so horrible of her. And he said, Christian, you got to respect people for what they believe, and you got to try to help them understand where you are and why you believe what you believe. And that was something that was really important to me. And something that he taught me that has stuck with me, to treat people good no matter what, because you never know when you're going to need those people. And those people actually ended up helping us get a lot of legislation passed. One of the things I think for me that I would want to do a little bit differently is maybe more on the education standpoint. And that's just on a personal level. I want to focus on education, but I also want to focus on education when it comes to children who have learning disabilities. Like myself, I'm dyslexic and I've had to learn to navigate life through that. And I've been fortunate enough to have a boss who really helped me navigate through that. And children who have autism, I have a godson and I have my nephew, they're autistic. And also children who have Down syndrome. We too often blame teachers for why students don't learn certain things, or we blame parents, but we're not realizing that we're not giving parents or teachers the necessary tools to show their child how they need to be taught. Because dyslexia comes in different forms, so does autism, so does Down syndrome. And if we can give those tools to teachers to give to parents, I think that will be an ease off of everyone's back, because nothing is, I think, more debilitating than being a parent who can't help your child because you don't know how to. So that's one of the things with education, which is really important to me, something that I would really want to champion, especially when it comes to those issues.
Okay, so I have a question. Hi, how are you?
Mhm.
I'm wondering about flood mitigation. What would you like to see to help Beaumont with that issue? Because we do have a lot of flooding and it impacts a lot of people quite severely.
Yeah, most definitely. So with flood mitigation, what I would like to do is more on a basis where we're going from inland and outland. And what I mean with that is, part of the problem we think about is Harvey, because that was what really showed us the big part of the flood. Of course, other people in our area have flooded even before we had a lot of bad storms. But when it comes to inland, to make sure that we're focusing on, do cities have the proper drainage tools? Do they have the proper drainage funds to be able to create the necessary pipes and drainage that needs to be? And sometimes that is what happens, that as infrastructure gets older, we need to update them. And also sometimes what happens is the city just doesn't have enough funding, and because we lose our wetlands or because certain areas have sunken, it now retains more water than what it used to. And as far as when it comes to flood mitigation, going outland, as far as in power surges that come into our area, doing things such as coastal spines. Now that can be a little tricky because each area has their own ordinances and things that would work. You have to be careful with flood mitigation, from rivers to doing anything as well as in the Gulf, because you can fix an entire area and then you can completely devastate another area. And so I want to make sure that we're doing things like deepening and widening, making sure that we're cleaning out the rivers so that when we have a large excess of river water that comes through because of storms, they don't all of a sudden just burst through and just flood our areas way too much, which is what happened a lot with Harvey, as well as the rainfall. And then as well as with our wetlands, making sure that we're doing things to rebuild them, making sure that we're rebuilding our coastlands and continuing to do projects like that.
Okay.
Hi, Christian. It is a pleasure to meet you.
Meet you too.
Don't live in the area, but definitely keep my eye on Southeast Texas.
Yes, he does.
No.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
But you come in at a critical moment, and I wish you and all the candidates much success. But one of the questions I have is, it's sort of a tag on to what Terry asked. What is it that you would like to see happen in the area that you haven't seen in your lifetime, that you'd like to help see once happen for Beaumont? And secondly, What do you think is the future for the area? I mean, despite a lot of negatives, including a declining population, a declining youth population, uh, what does that area need in order to keep young, progressive minded people like yourself attracted to the area?
Well, some of it is a local issue, and some of it, of course, is a state issue. When it comes to that, what I would like to do is to make sure that we're giving necessary funds that the state can legally give to expand our industry. And when I say industry, I don't just mean refinery, having other sources of income other than just the refinery. And one bill that the rep has filed, I want to say it's been the last maybe 3 to 4 sessions, is a casino bill. That's something that I would really, really, really like to push forward because it gives us another source of income. Also, with a bill like that, it takes the money and it gives it to TWIA so that a lot of those funds, they won't directly just go into the general revenue budget. That way, those funds will just strictly go there to help people to say, okay, I can live in this area because I know if there's a storm, I'm going to be able to fix it, rebuild, and move on. And then I can continue with my life. I think keeping people in this area, for me, I'll just speak for myself. One of the reasons I've always stayed here is my family. And I love here because it's a mixture of rural and it's also a mixture of suburban, which is very different. A lot of places don't have that. And I think if we can get more industry jobs in here that are other than refineries, other than just teaching, I think that we would be able to continue to thrive because, of course, our area kind of stays very stagnant, which eventually at one point is not going to be sustainable. And we will end up having just one state representative where we used to have 3. And what I would like to do is just to try to continue to do things like that, to just continue to help pass any kind of legislation and to help any way that the cities, Beaumont, Port Arthur, Nederland, Port Neches, have what they need from the state to continue their economic development programs, which are vital. And that's really what I think is what can continue to make our area thrive and will make it thrive better. And I always tell people this story. I know a lot of you guys may or may not know this, but I tell people representation is so, so vital and important. Any of you ever traveling on I-10, if you're ever just driving through and you're coming from Houston, when you get to that Winnie stretch, as we call it, where Port Arthur goes one way and you keep going straight through Winnie to get to Beaumont, the road curves just a little bit to the left and it stays straight. If you ever look at a map, the fastest direction to get to Louisiana is where the road continues to go straight, which is through Port Arthur. But representation moved I-10 just a little bit to where that the road would go through Beaumont, which is what gave Beaumont that thrive, which is what at one point in time Port Arthur was a thriving city. So we have to make sure we have proper representation and city that works with state, local, and federal government to make sure that we can have things like that happen where we can have both of our communities thrive. Because if we lose one, we lose the other. And we can't continue on where there is one city has this and one city has this and one doesn't have this. We have to find ways to help bring both of those communities together. And that's one way that I would like to continue to do that, is to bridge the gap to make sure that we're giving equal amount of resources, economic resources to both cities, to both parts of our areas, north and south.
Yeah. And to that point, I would say, I've always said that the competition is not Beaumont and Port Arthur. It's the Golden Triangle against Chambers County. Because if they could ever get something in Chambers County to bypass Beaumont, it'll be a stop on the way to something else. Mm-hmm. And that's our struggle.
Absolutely.
Well,
so I appreciate that.
Hey, I'm going to dive in here, and I want to be real, real deep with this one. Kristen, how long have you been in apprenticeship? And in other words, not just apprenticeship, but you've been under Joe Straus, and he has endorsed you.
The GOAT.
The GOAT.
The GOAT.
The GOAT.
And I want this. I know that you've been under his under his care for how many years? And what did you really actually learn? And what would you like to see happen that you guys couldn't finish? So actually, you finishing you bringing the torch to the finish line right now.
So I've been with them for 17 years and 3 months,
Se-
almost 4 months.
17 years you've been.
Yeah, 17 years. And what I guess I would say, I've learned a lot. God, it's a lot. I mean, as I tell people all the time, I sometimes have to catch myself because I get into capital political lingo. Someone will ask me something. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll call the LBB and I'll get you the numbers, but I have to wait 24 hours for the bill. And they're like, who's LBB? How does that mean? What are you talking about? And I'm like, I am so sorry. I just kind of get into there and I'm like, I've learned truly, I think the most important thing, and one thing I would definitely like to do, and one thing that, if elected, but I believe in saying it, for those saying is say it, and it will happen. Say it and believe it. When I'm elected, that's something that I'm going to do is make sure that people no longer have representatives on any level that I'm associated with where they don't understand what the system is. Now, of course, I can't reach everyone, but I would do everything to explain to people when I say LBB or committee sub or Reagan building, that they will at least have a basic understanding of saying, hey, I know what that is. And I believe in that is because the more information that our citizens know about their government, the more information they have to know who to elect to vote for, and also if they want to run. Because if you have a good basic understanding, you can read more to have some understanding. And what I've learned really is the best thing is to listen more and speak less. A lot of you who know him, Rep Desautels is very quiet.
Yes.
He doesn't speak a lot. You can see him in a room and he'll be like this for like an hour. And then you'll ask him something and he'll just spout off like 20 years
Yes.
of knowledge of the legislator. And you're like, let's talk after this. And you're just trying to get it. And that's something that I really learned because that's one of the reasons that he is very well respected within the building. And one of the reasons that a lot of members have said that they are willing to work with me because I've taken that upon myself to listen, to ask people for help. My father always told me the most adult thing you can do is ask for help.
Right.
If you can't ask for help, then you think that you're above everything else. And how can anyone work with you or respect you or even want to vote for you if they feel like they can't ever teach you something that you don't know? And so those are just some of the things that I can literally say that I've learned from him, to respect people, to be passionate about what you believe in, to not let everything sit on your shoulders and carry you down. Speak about the things that are important to you, and everything else, you let it, there's someone else who that issue is important to them. You don't always have to be heard to be seen. And that's something I would say that I've learned. I know there was another part of your question, but I got really excited about the political lingo, and I'm so sorry about that. I said LBB, and I thought I was back at work, like, call the committee clerk, and we need that committee sub, because if not, they can't vote on our bill, and I get in that mode sometimes.
Hey, Christian, I'm sorry, but I want to know, and it's kind of a piggyback off of Tony's question. If elected, will you continue to be under his mentorship?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'll say this. He is more than a boss and a mentor. He's a second father to me.
Yeah.
Even my father, he moved back to California after he retired from being here in 2006. And he came back and he told the rep, he said, I want to thank you for helping me raise my son. He said, because you've been helping raise him. And this was probably when I was with him for 10 years. He is someone who I look up to. He's someone that I still ask for knowledge,
Yeah.
for advice. I tell people all the time, I'm just 36 years old.
Yeah.
I still have, God willing, many more years to live, and I still have a whole lot left to learn.
Right.
And definitely will be someone who I will always listen to and always will be grateful for. And I say this as a plug that he hates me to always say, but as a young Black man in a building where there were 13 of us 2 years ago, it took Texas 176, 78 years to have 13 Black chief of staffs.
Oh wow.
in a building with 181 members. And he
I,
was one person who always knew that representation was important, and he always knew that it was important to give Black people and minorities spots in a building that we don't normally get positions in. Black Americans are the least employed and the least paid in the Texas Capitol out of everyone else when you go off of statistics. So that's always
Wow.
very important to me.
I also see that you were endorsed by the Sabine Area Labor Council and the
Yes.
Jefferson County Commissioner, Shane Siegel.
Yes,
So
Senator.
can
Yes.
you tell us a little bit
Senegal.
about it? What is it?
Senegal.
Mr. Singh Senator.
Senegal. Oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Senegal. Don't take
Yeah.
it personally.
That's okay.
Yes. Um, Going off, I think they're both really exciting, but I think labor for me was kind of like a jolt. I kind of was like I kind of springed a little bit because I've worked with labor since I've been there. And labor is very important to me. I've had family that has been a part of labor, and I just believe in labor. I always believe in you cannot have a good workforce if you're not taking care of your employees. And I have to give them another plug. I have a great boss who takes care of his employees. So I don't understand how other people don't see that as well. And I think that's why it's so important for me to have the labor endorsement and why I've worked with them for so many years passionately, because people are suffering and people need to know that their jobs are not just protected, but their rights are protected. And labor does an amazing job of doing that. Um, the lockout is such a hard situation, and I never
Mhm.
like to interject anything that I've done because I always tell people any letter, any politician, anyone who's ever stood on the lines, it compares nothing to those people who stand out there who don't have their jobs right now because a company is not being good to their workers. Labor is so, so, so important to me. And that's why I was so excited about that, because for me, it's an honor that they trust me enough to know that I will continue to fight for labor rights and for workers' rights. And with Commissioner Senegal, I can't say enough about him. He is he is such a great human being. He is someone who, whenever I have questions or if there's things that we need to make sure that we're doing on our end as elected officials in the state legislature, he will make sure that we are accountable for it. And I love representation like that. Whenever he has a problem, he will call us and say, hey, I have a constituent who has this problem. This isn't my arena. Tell me how to handle this. And that's how he helps his constituents. Where he can't do it, he makes sure that someone else does it. He doesn't try to overshadow and pretend he knows more and does more. And I want to definitely be a member like that. One who says, hey, that's not my arena, but I can put you in touch with the person
Yes.
who does. Because, again, and I'll say that, as some people say, the loudest one in the room is the weakest one in the room. You cannot know everything and you cannot do everything. And having a good partnership with Commissioner Senegal has been an honor because he keeps me on my toes, he keeps the rep on his toes, and he makes sure that the county is getting what they need from the state, because we're literally the intermediate between the local government and the federal government. That is our job, and that is what we have to do as a state representative.
Chris, where is he? Okay, I'm Chris. I'm in the background. I'm doing the board.
We see
Oh,
that,
I got a
Tony.
question
Yeah.
for him.
We
Okay,
see
I had a
it.
question. Christian, I work in the health field,
Mhm.
uh, and it's a lot of changes that's going on in the health field, both good and bad. And lately, it's just been a lot of bad. What are some of the things that you plan on trying to work on as far as everything that's in your power to help people as far as health care?
Well, one thing I would like to continue to do is fight for Medicaid expansion. I know that it's a bit difficult with the arena that we're in and with the numbers that we don't have, but we do have enough Republican and Democrat support to move such things as an 1115 waiver, which would kind of be expanding healthcare, even if we can't get a Medicaid push, which we could add, it's about an estimated 4 to 4.2 million Texans. I would like to do things like that because we have people who have mental illnesses that need help, which is a big thing. Want to continue to keep pushing the needle. And I want to just say this really quick, not to get off subject. Sometimes being a representative is knowing that you're not going to get a bill passed maybe for 4 to 6 to 8 years. But if you keep pushing the needle, you keep showing people what actually can be changed on it, that's really important. And that's what I want to continue to do with healthcare. I don't want to lie to people and say, I'm going to get your healthcare. That would be disingenuous of me. I would like to continue to let the body know why healthcare is important, let them know the people in their areas who are impacted by not having proper healthcare coverage. Also, making sure that our healthcare workers are being funded at adequate rates. And what I mean by that is, I think that it's trying to think of the proper word to say this without being cruel. I think it's downright mean to be paying out-of-state healthcare workers more than we're paying in-state healthcare workers who are battling COVID, who are battling at times Ebola, who are battling the cold, the flu, when all of these things happen. We need to be able to pay our in-state employees the exact same amount of money you would pay someone else who comes from out of state, so that we can have more people in the healthcare industry, so that we can have more hospitals, we can have more beds, so that we don't have shortages. I want to do things like that to continue to move the needle, to show people, hey, you had this many COVID beds, you had this many people with COVID, you had this many people who died. And then after that one, let's talk about how many people died because they had the flu and they didn't have adequate places, or people who had cancer, who didn't have access to proper hospitalization because of other illnesses, because they didn't have enough nurses or there wasn't enough hospitals. I want to continue to try to do things like that by making sure that also we don't leave our federal dollars anymore
on the
with
table.
the federal government, because that's one thing that I definitely will do in our area, and I will continue to do in everyone's area. We have got to stop looking at healthcare as a red, a blue, a green, a purple, or whatever you want to look at it. At the end of the day, Texans need to realize the money that you don't accept by expanding healthcare is money that you give to the federal government.
You lose
that when
it.
You
lose it.
give it to another state. And as the fastest growing state with more representation, we cannot afford to allow people to say, well, this is a Republican and this is a Democrat, or Beto O'Rourke or Abbott, or this person or that person. Healthcare is not a political issue. Healthcare is about taking care of your neighbors, loving yourself, loving other people as you love yourself. And that's something that I'm going to continue to harbor on until I have no voice, or until I'm no longer here, or until hopefully people will really understand it is not about politics. It is about saving people's lives and giving people a good quality of life to live.
Because inadequate health care is what killed a lot of people last time, more than COVID.
Exactly.
More than COVID. So, and that's what people don't see. I see it every day. People, can't get proper health care in the United States.
And that's where one of the richest countries
in the world.
No one should be without health insurance. No one should be without at least a proper place to stay. And if we can make sure that, and those two things, if we can make sure that people have health care and a proper place to stay, I'm not talking a mansion for every person, but if we make sure our unhoused neighbors who are suffering with mental illnesses have a place to go, that means when we get another freeze, we don't have to worry that they don't have someplace warm to be. When we have another freeze, we don't have to worry, or another pandemic, we don't have to worry about people's mental health issues where they feel claustrophobic and they have no one to talk to and they have no needs. People would still be able to work. We would still be able to take care of them. We have got to remember, this is about people. It's not about titles. It's not about votes. It's about people who suffer when we become pig-headed and think it's about us.
So I have another question. I'm sorry. I read that you are working on something that will make it so that convicted felons or people with criminal histories don't get asked that question until the second or third interview.
Yes.
And I agree with that. I think that that is a really good idea. However, I'm licensed by TDLR, the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulations, and I help others get their TDLR licenses for their field. And that is the first question. Like, if you have a criminal background, the odds are you're not even going to be considered to get a license. So what's going on with that, and what are we hoping will happen with the TDLR aspect of it?
So I love that you brought that bill up. That's one of my favorite bills. So what that bill actually does is, and going back to what I was saying about keep pushing the needle, that's a bill that we pushed and pushed and pushed, and we finally got the business association and different members to say, hey, this actually is a good bill. So what the bill does is it says that you can still ask that question, but it's after the second or third interview. And what it basically will do is saying, hey, if you have gone to a second or third interview, a person is much more likely to give you the job because they've already got to know you, your qualifications. They see that you work well with other people, or that you could work well with other people in that office or within that industry. And so it moves you along in the process of immediately just being kicked out, because we have people who were 18, 19 who had a small possession charge on them, and then now all of a sudden they can't do anything because all they see is a possession charge.
Right.
This person is now 34, 40 years old, and they're still just stuck. And that bill basically will say things like, if you have had a conviction of a possession crime, something like that, and it's been more than 10 years, it wouldn't count against you because you're not a repeat offender. And it's giving people an opportunity to say, okay, you did get in trouble, but we're not going to give up on you, because we're not giving up on you because you've shown us that not only can you do your time, but you've also been rehabilitated, and you come into society and you want to give back. And that's what that bill does. It's called Ban the Box. And it's something that I will literally say we are this close. I mean, you can't even really see it. We are that close to that bill going straight through. That bill literally moved so fast at the beginning of this session, we were just kind of freaked out because everyone was like, we love this bill. So it's a bill that not only is good, but it has great momentum already in the legislature.
And what would that do for the TDLR aspect of it? Because if somebody comes in and wants to drive a tow truck,
yeah,
I can't go any further with you unless you can get a TDLR.
Right.
But that's the first question they're going to ask.
Right. It would push that question back to
Right.
about the third interview. And then it would be a question that you can ask them once it gets to that point. So then you can have all of those interviews and the follow-up interviews before you would even ask that question.
Would it put more leniency with TDLR?
Yes, it would. It would work through all of that with government agencies, well, state government agencies, with state government agencies.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Christian, one last question I have. What do you have any thoughts or ideas on keeping the current elected officials accountable?
I think all elected officials should be held accountable. And I say it for this, and I say this across the board. When the end of every month comes for a state representative, we get a bill that shows everything that we've done down to the phone calls that we make, because it's taxpayer dollars.
Right.
And people say don't repeat, but I'm going to say that again because I really want people to know that I understand this and I want them to get this. It's taxpayer dollars. It's your dollars. Everyone should be accountable, because every elected official, whether they're a state rep who makes $600 a month or someone who's making $200 and some, $300 and some $1,000 a month or a year, it's still taxpayer dollars. And you should be accountable like that. If you give your child an allowance and you want to know if they're managing money, you wouldn't even entertain a question of, should I ask my child what they're doing with their money? You're just going to ask them because you know that's your right as the parent.
Right.
Well, in essence, that's what people should be doing. They should always hold their representatives accountable. They should always ask for audits. They should always ask for receipts, as they say, show me the receipt. Literally, every month, if someone ever wanted, you can ask a state representative's office, hey, can I get your receipts? I want to see how many phone calls you made. I want to see
Yep.
if there's how much you charge for mail this month. I want to see every time you send a FedEx, because guess what? There's a printout of salary paid, how long the person's, well, not how long they've been there, salary paid. Every time we buy supplies, it shows up on a piece of paper that's sent to us. Every phone call with the number that we make is shown on that call. So yes, everyone should be held to an accountable standard, because I think it's just the only thing that we should be doing.
Yeah.
Without question.
Even city officials. So
Mhm.
Yep.
Single
city,
person,
especially city. So
every single person. I'll just say this for state representatives. If I want to go to a conference and the rep says it's okay, and it's a state conference that the state says yes, you can go for, I can still only spend about $150 a day for a room. I can only spend, I think it's $75 or $100 a day for food. You have to submit receipts or you do not get reimbursed. So if I want to go to Dallas and go to a state conference, I can go to a room and pay $500 a night, but the state is only going to cover $150 of it. I have to pay the rest of it. And I think that's totally fair, because I'm not going for leisure trip. I'm going to do something that's going to better our constituents. So the more knowledge I have, the more knowledge I can give to these people. And I think doing things like that, I just think maybe it's just me being there for 17 years, but I think it's just absolutely normal. And I think it's how things should be. Have receipts. It has to be for a certain purpose, and there should be caps and limits on how much you can spend. That's what we do here. That's something that, for me, I would never vote for a bill that would allow state representative's office to do anything more than that at all. Without voters' approval, I'll say it. If voters say it's okay to go up to, $500 a night, that's for the voters. But for me, I would never vote for something like that without voters' approval.
Okay. Everything we talked about tonight hinges just on that one key thing, and that's voting.
Yes.
And we know that where Texas is and voting Florida, where I'm at, is no better. What do you think is the best steps to take? I mean, I know that we always, for so long, the people have looked either to the legislature to try to win this. We've looked to Congress. We look to the courts. So now that none of those places have won,
Yes.
now we need leadership to instruct us how to approach this. And I think we need a very different approach. What do you see? I mean, just coming from the legislature and what we've seen in terms of turnout.
Mhm.
And then secondly, I do have a request for you, and it's a request I'm asking all Black leaders. Alcee Hastings, when he was alive, started an organization here in Broward called the Black Elected Officials.
Mhm.
It was a group that was made up of Black elected officials that forced them to come together to meet.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, when Congressman Hastings got sick, that group failed to meet. And as I look at the GOP and across the aisle, that's all they do is meet and plan.
Yeah.
What I want to ask from my Black leaders, can you all just meet? We have all these Black elected officials in Golden Triangle and Beaumont. And what do we have to show for it that none of you all ever took the time out to meet, to plan on our behalf? These were the promises that you all said that you were going to do. So in order to meet their promise, you got to meet and plan. So will you help lead our Black elected officials in Southeast Texas to at least come together for 1 hour a month and meet?
Well,
That's how we can ask.
first thing you got to do is to get them to listen. They don't listen. So they talk to listen. So
I will say this, and not to step on anyone's toes, I will say that the Black elected officials and the non-Black elected officials in our area have always, at least when our office has been involved, they've always reached out. They've always spoke with us. And I will always meet with anyone, especially when it comes to something like voting rights, because it's just so very important. I'm fortunate enough, I don't know what that feels like to not know what it's like to vote, or to have to grow up and say, I remember when my mother could not vote. And I'm just really fortunate and blessed that I don't know how that feels, but I know what it feels like to see people that I love and care about tell me those stories. And it's kind of frightening because we always know time moves forward, but progress does not always move forward. And when it comes to voting rights, Texas has the most Black people out of any state in the union, and of course, out of any battleground state. The problem I think that what happens is that for some people in some places, just like you said, Mr. Terry, not all people want to listen to everybody. And for me, one thing I always tell people is I speak and talk a certain way, and some people speak and talk a different kind of way. We need to be able to have people who think alike, who speak differently, who have different vernaculars than us, who are giving that information to people with their vernacular, the same message that I'm giving, so that they don't feel like this person is too urban, or this person is too bougie, or this person is this. Someone who doesn't understand politics doesn't want someone coming in their door saying, let me talk to you about the committee on da 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 da. What does that do for them? How do you explain? But there's someone who can explain the exact same thing that I'm going to explain, but it's going to say it in a way that not only will they understand it, but they will appreciate it. And we have to get rid of the crabs in a barrel. I'll say this, Rep. Desautels has put me on his shoulders. So it's my responsibility at the end of the day, no matter what happens, to make sure that I'm putting other people on my shoulders to make sure that they can help someone else. It's about uplifting each other. And we have to, as far as voting, we have to make sure we're speaking to people. Like Malcolm X says, what's the point of using a $5 word if they don't understand it? We have to speak to people who don't understand the $5 words. We have to speak to people who do, and we got to speak to people who only understand $10 words. We got to speak to everybody in their language. We got to work together to make sure that that message is getting out. That's imperative, because so many people don't vote because, one, they don't understand what's actually going on. And I always jokingly tell people, I said, if people understood how powerful government actually is, I think they would really wake up. But we got to give it to them in that message. I tell people, to me, the two most important things are religion and politics. Religion, because it influences politics. What you believe or what you don't believe influences how you vote. And politics determines what you can do, if you can do it, when you can do it, where you can do it, no matter where you go in the universe. Even if there aren't people, it's still going to determine how you colonize, how you grow. So we have to make sure that we're talking to these people and letting them know that you are the only way that these things change. We can get rid of gerrymandering if we can get people who are Black and Hispanic who don't vote in a state that is over 50% Black and Hispanic to vote. If we get those kinds of things going, then we don't have to worry about gerrymandering, because we can get an outside counsel to make districts of interest together, to make sure that we're cutting maps for congressional members the way they're supposed to be. And you take that power from the legislator, and then guess what? You no longer have infighting. You no longer have all of this back and forth. It's handled and it's done because you know that it's a third party person that oversees it. It goes to a Supreme Court to make sure that it meets all the qualifications, and you're done. Things like that is how we can move forward. But we really, really, really have to move forward explaining people why they have to vote, not why they should vote. I think you should also say, you should vote, you need to vote. No, you have to vote. It's not just about civil rights. It's not just about women not having the right to vote. It's about the fact of when you don't vote, you are saying it's okay to let anything happen to you. And one book that I love that a lot of people have, everyone hasn't finished reading it, is about mass incarceration. And she says in her book, she says, during slavery, they knew slavery was going to come to an end. But we were so busy fighting to end slavery while they were 3 steps ahead. She says, if you look at how history goes, they had Jim Crow together before slavery ever ended because they knew it was coming to an end at some point. Well, by the time we get to Jim Crow, they've already been building prisons, and now they're already on the voting rights. And we're fighting what? Just getting the right to vote. We're not looking at the fact of, well, once they give you the right to vote, you could easily be imprisoned and then lose your right to vote. So we have to look at what we need to get done and also implement plans that are going to set us up for 2-3 steps, 2-3 generations in the future. So they're already activated once that generation gets there. As they say, we have to give generational knowledge. We have to pass that on just like generational wealth to people.
Okay. Well, Christian, we've had a good show and we appreciate you being here. We're so humbled and blessed to have you on our show tonight. Do you have any closing remarks that you want to share with our audience?
Sure. I'm gonna give my real candidate spiel. My name is Christian Manuel. I have worked for State Representative Joe Straus for the last 17 years. I'm endorsed by him. I've been trained by him. And I would love to be your next state representative, not for the title, but to do what needs to be done for you and to always listen and to remember that it's not me who's important, it's you, and that I'm not a leader, but I'm a representative. You are the leader and you pick your leader. And I just would like to be your next state representative. And as kids my age say, I'm not new to this, I'm true to this. And I hope all of you will vote for me on March the 1st. Early voting starts February the 14th through February the 25th. And I'm number 1 on the ballot for state representative. And remember that experience matters, legislative experience matters. And can't wait to meet as many of you as I possibly can.
Yeah, that's
one thing. Your link on your you posted a link for your website. It's not working.
Okay, I'll get the web guy on and find out what it is. Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Gary. I'm sorry. Did I interrupt something?
No, that was
okay,
it.
Great.
Sure,
Thank you, Christian Emmanuel Hayes, candidate for Texas State House of Representatives, represented us in District 22. I'm glad to have you. It's been a great 50 minutes of good talk. We learned of your experience. You've got great experience. You've got the Austin connection, and that's the key. Having an Austin connection. That's what we need.
I can call the LTD for you.
What is that?
Budget board.
So, Francis, you can close us, and we'll see you guys on Tuesday at 7 o'clock on Knowledge is Power Podcast Live. And tonight we've been with my guy, Christian Emmanuel Hayes, the candidate for Texas State House Representative District 22. And early voting starts
February 14th.
February 14th, on Valentine's Day. And for those first 10 days, we need to get out and vote.
Show me some love, please.
Yeah, vote for our representative. So anyone, guys, you have any lasting words? And if not, we're going to move on to the next show. Great. So, guys, I've been trying to do this all night, and I'm glad I got this over with. Let me do this because I want folks to know that we have oh, wait a minute. I'm going the wrong way. All right, hold on. Here we go. That we have a new a Facebook page. It's called Knowledge is Power Podcast. But it's also it's the Black Knowledge page, and we want you all to join us. Just click on it, and that's what it looks like. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. There's only one thing in this world more powerful than money, and that's knowledge. And this is something we must do. We must exercise and educate our community about our culture, about our history, about health, education, financial. So you'll find all this posted in this brand new page on Facebook. It's a group page. You can join, you can post, Black culture post that you would like to do. We'd love to have you to share with us. And we thank you again. So, did
Hey,
I do that
Tony.
right?
Tony, one
Yeah.
last thing. I just want to say my former chamber president, Regina Lindsay, passed away unexpectedly earlier this week. And I just want everyone to know that that her family is in our thoughts and prayers.
Amen. Amen. So, guys, thank you so much again. We love it. And I see you on Tuesday for our next new show.
Thank you for watching Knowledge is Power Podcast Live. Be sure to like and subscribe to all Knowledge is Power social media pages.